Thanks, Senator Coburn. First of all, I truly want to thank you for your service. I realize these are not, these are enormous challenges, extremely difficult. And I also agree with Senator Paul. And the purpose here is we need to fix our legal immigration system. We need to solve this problem. I want to see an immigration bill pass. But certainly, as I talk to members of the public, there is a high degree of skepticism about securing the border. And I'm concerned about this particular bill where it's more focused on a process or more focused on who's going to certify whether the border is secure as opposed to actually passing a bill that secures the border. So I'd kind of like to go back to where I started my questioning in terms of the history of trying to secure the border. We've been trying to do this now for 30, 40 years. We obviously haven't succeeded, and again, I'm sure it's because not because we haven't tried, but what is the enormity of the challenge? I mean, why have we simply not put the resources toward it? Is it just too big a problem we'll never be able to solve? And I'd kind of like to just go down the panel. Why haven't we been able to? And really, what are the prospects of actually being able to secure the border in the next 5 or 10 years? Secretary Heyman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, and thank you for your support of this legislation and the reform that will go forward. One of the things that this bill does, which hasn't been done in 30 years, is it takes a comprehensive approach. You have to address the number of things that are broken in the system, and you can't just address one of them. To begin with, you have a magnet of jobs in the U.S. economy that attracts individuals. These are jobs that are in effect off the books because illegitimate travelers coming to the United States who are not lawfully present can go to businesses that are gaming the system by hiring people who are legally present. The bill addresses that through
But let me just stop, because part of the concern, I totally agree with you. You've really got two demands here. You've got the drug trafficking. You've got the workers that are required. Does this bill even come close to providing enough temporary work visas to fulfill that demand?
So there's a number of different ways you're addressing this in the bill. One is to streamline our visa opportunities for individuals to come here, whether it's agricultural visitors, guest workers, as it were, whether it's high-tech employment or otherwise. That's one way of satisfying it. The other way is to take away the demand signal by saying it's illegal to do that and having workforce and every business be required to do an E-Verify check to verify lawful presence in the United States. So if you're coming here and you're trying to get a job, you better make sure you're lawfully present.
What happens when people verify employment and then businesses still can't fill the positions? What happens at that point with this law?
When businesses can't fill positions.
By the way, that is a common thread when I'm traveling around Wisconsin. When I talk to employers, they simply cannot fill good-paying jobs in the manufacturing sector today, even with high levels of unemployment. We're not filling those.
Yeah, these levels, these are levels that are set in law. This is a continuous debate and discussion year to year as businesses continue to compete for the best or the best labor that they can get. One of the things that I think we need to continue to do is to invest in our own resources at home, our own labor at home, particularly on the high-tech jobs, investing in science and education that allows us to grow our own citizenry's skill sets so that we can fulfill those jobs in the absence of immigration.
Okay, let me move down the panel, just kind of go to back to my original question. What has prevented us, and what are the prospects moving forward?
Well, first, I agree with Assistant Secretary on the need for a comprehensive solution. In terms of your question, Senator, on the enormity of the problem, just to give you a quick vignette that I think highlights the overall picture. 225 million people crossing our land border each year, critical to our North American economy, our partnership with Canada and Mexico. Prior to the creation of CBP, about 5% of those people were actually queried and checked in a law enforcement system. They could cross with up to 6,000 different types of documents, state IDs, birth certificates, you name it. In 2007, 8, and 9, the Department of Homeland Security implemented the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative. The first step was a policy decision that only 5 documents would be acceptable for crossing the international border. The second part was implementing technology that would enable us to check those documents quickly and make sure that somebody was secure as they cross the border. That's license plate readers, RFID technology, and new primary systems. The implementation of that took hundreds of millions of dollars and several years, but has dramatically changed the border. We now query well over 98% of all people crossing the land border. We've reduced fraudulent document attempts. We've increased arrests and increased security without slowing down that traffic.
Okay,
That's the kind of thing we have to do.
Let me quick move on, because I just wanted to ask one more basic question. Again, when Secretary Napolitano was before us very early, 2 years ago, I asked her, do you have enough resources? What would it cost to secure the border? And she said she had enough resources. I'm not quite sure of that. So I don't know, is it a matter of resources? And then secondly, have you ever been tasked with the job of saying, this is what we need to do to secure the border? You know, actually come up with the plan. I mean, if we need more fence, this is how many miles of fence we have to build. This is how high it needs to be. This is how it has to be constructed. If we need more boots on the ground, this is how many boots we need on the ground. Have you ever been tasked with that? And is that, you know, and if not, is that your understanding of what's going to be required with this bill? You know, finally come up with that plan, which I guess I'd be kind of scratching my head. If we've been trying to do this for 30, 40 years, why don't we have that plan in place right now?
Senator Johnson, I came back to Washington, D.C. to serve again at the headquarters component 3 years ago. And over the last 3 years, and it was something that Senator Colburn mentioned, and really probably within the last 6 months, specific hearings on asking the very question that even the chairman had mentioned. What does it mean to have a secure border? Now, we have defined that because as we were transitioning our strategy, we identified what that meant to us in our implementation, and we'll be able to adjust to that depending upon what the end state looks like. Within our own strategy, when we look at the implementation, what is the end state? It is not a static position. It is not something that on one day it's secure and the next day it's not. It is more predicated on evolving threats and what that risk is at any given time to this country. And so the next question I was asked was, Chief, tell us when the border is going to be secured. And my general response to that is when there are no more bad people looking to come into this country illegally between the ports of entry. That's the only time that I would feel comfortable to come before this committee and others and suggest that the border is definitively secured. It is not an easy process. I don't offer, even in the context of an effectiveness ratio, that somehow this is a scientific method and that I can assure the chairman in this committee or the American people that at any given time we will be able, on 4,000 miles on the northern border and 2,000 miles on the southern border, be able to say with 100% certainty the amount of people that enter, and of that number, how many people we apprehend. The terrain does not allow it. The vastness within our borders don't allow us. However, we are not it doesn't mean we can't accomplish that.
But again, I understand that, but have you ever been tasked with the challenge of laying out a plan? I mean, basically your dream list. And is that already, do we already have that in place? I mean, can we review that?
Yes, sir. Our strategic plan of 2012-2016 was published last May, when the first year of implementation. It's certainly available to you and your staff, and I'd love to give you a personal briefing on that if you're interested, sir, and to give you an insight into what implementation looks like, to include the measures that we have been putting together over this past year.
So if that's already in place, why are we looking at this bill to develop another plan? I mean, why aren't we looking at that and implementing that with this piece of legislation?
Well, our section, our strategy, just to be clear, only takes into consideration between the ports of entry, right? We are working within both CBP and the department's strategic plan and the guiding principles that are set forth in the Quadrennial Homeland Security Review. Those are all nested together. That's why in the earlier question, I feel comfortable that the timelines within the current draft bill suggest that implementation is doable, because a lot of that work is done. It's just a matter of integrating those and then identifying the definitive end state that defines whether or not the border is secure or not, and what those parameters or what those indicators are, to help us gauge whether, in fact, we do need more resources, whether we have to shift resources from one area to the other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Those are all good questions. I just want to say thank you so much for coming early and staying late yet again.